Hello and welcome to this video where I'm going to share with you how you can use Excel to do simple mathematical manipulations in your place of work, at home, or in your private business. And I'm going to use an example in my place of work. Recently, I was involved in converting marks from raw marks to percentages. These are situations where my students did 3 papers in my subject, which is physics. They did paper 1, paper 2, paper 3. Paper 1 and paper 2, each is out of 80 marks, and paper 3 is out of 40 marks. So how do we calculate the percentage? This is how we do it. So I'm going to take you through that particular method so that you can see whether you can be able to use the same in your subject or even in your business. Many times we're involved in carrying out these mathematical manipulations, and we are using the calculator all the time, but sometimes you may make a mistake, especially where the mathematical manipulations are repetitive. For example, in my class, I've got 51 students. For me to carry out the same mathematical manipulations or calculations for each student, it is too much because I'll have to do it 51 times and I can make a mistake. So why don't I develop a system that only relies on input of raw marks? I just need to be careful where I'm putting in the values for paper 1, paper 2, and paper 3. And then the system calculates the percentage for me. So here I've got the paper. Let's look at the paper. Let's look at the total marks. Total marks for that for the paper. Total marks. And then for a student X or even for a student Y, what did they score and how do I calculate those percentages? There is paper 1, there is paper 2, and there is paper 3. The sum, the total for paper 1 is 80, paper 2 is 80, paper 3 is 40. Let's look at a student who gets 30 marks in paper 1, 50 marks in paper 2, and let's be a bit generous here and say this student got 36 out of 40. So this first student gets 30 marks in paper 1, 50 in paper 2, and 36 in paper 3. The second student, student Y, gets 42 out of 80, 35 out of 80, and 29 out of 40. The percentage is calculated as follows. We get the sum of paper 1 and paper 2. We divide that by 100. Then, since paper 1 and paper 2 contribute 60%, we are going to multiply by 60. And then in order to get that percentage, we are going to add the marks they get in paper 3, just the raw marks. So let's see what X gets. X obtained 30 plus 50. So at some point, I will have to add that 30 and 50 for every student. Paper 1 and paper 2, I'll have to get the sum. So I can use the calculator for that. I divide that marks by 100. Then I multiply it by 60. And then I'm going to add what the student got in paper 3, which is 36. 36. So let me use my mobile phone to get those marks. So the first one is 30 plus 50, which gives me 80. This gives me 80. I divide by 160, not 100. Actually, this is 160. Sorry, this is 160 Let me write it properly. I had made a mistake there. You can see these are some of the mistakes that you can easily make when you are doing repetitive work. So 80 divided by 160 times 60, then plus 36. And remember, you can divide 60 by 160 to get 0.375, and you use that factor. You multiply the sum of paper 1 and paper 2 by that factor. You can simplify, you work that way. But I'm going to show you an even simpler method. So here I'm going to use 0.375, having divided 60 by 160 to get 0.375. And then I multiply that 0.375 by 80 times 80. I get 30. This one's going to give me 30. And then I get plus 36. And student X is going to get 66%. 66%. The student, let's see what student Y gets. Student Y gets 42 plus 35 divided by 160 times 60. Or this time, I can just use that simpler method that we have already agreed upon. That once I get the sum of paper 1 and paper 2, I multiply by 0.375, and then I just add 29, that is paper 3. So uh, 42 plus 35 gives me 77. I multiply by 0.375. I get 28.875, 28.875, and then I have to add 29. Let me get that percentage. We are going to test this on the system that I have already developed, and then I'll take you the process of developing your own, depending on how many papers you have, what is the total, and so forth. So I have 28.875. I'm going to add 29. Is 29? Yes, 29. And I get 57.875, which gives me approximately 58%. 58%. Now, the examination analysis system that my school is using, and that may be the same for your school, because every school has got an exam analysis system. That system requires you to enter marks out of a certain, value. Most systems require you to enter percentages. So you've got to do these percentages elsewhere, and then you just enter the percentages. So you can see when the number of students are very many, as it happens here in Kenya, the number of students per class could be 50, could be 60. Sometimes in some schools, it is as high as 70 students in a single classroom. You can imagine a teacher doing those 70 separate manipulations using a calculator. It is time consuming, and the teacher may end up making a lot of mistakes. So why don't you, as a teacher, develop your own simple system that helps you to do those simple manipulations, and you will never make a mistake. The system will never make a mistake. All right. So let's go to the system that I have already developed to help me do these calculations, and then we test it. We test it with these marks. A student who gets 30, 50, 60, and so forth. what will be the actual marks that the student is going to get. I have calculated that using the calculator and got 66% and 58%. Let's see what the system will give me. Now here I have my system. I'm going to assume that this student is a student 1, and like we've been told, this student 1 has how many marks? 30 in paper 1. 30 in paper 1. He scored 50 in paper 2. 50 marks out of 80 in paper 2. And you can see as I enter the marks, the system is calculating certain percentages there at the end. And this student got 36%. I mean 36 marks out of 40. What is the percentage that the system gives me? The system gives me, let me see, that was 30, 50, 60. The system gives me 66%. So you can see that system is accurate as far as that student is concerned. Let me test it with student number 2, who actually got let me see what that student got. He got 58%. He got 58%. Is the system going to give me 58%? Let's find out. So student number 2 scored 42 marks out of 80. And then he scored 35 out of 80. And then after that, he scored 29 out of 40. Let me see what that system gives me. It gives me 57.875, and that is 58%. Again, my system, I've tested my system, and my system appears to be fine. So let's go back to Excel, and then I take you through the process of what I did. So here we've got the Excel file. I want to zoom in so that everything can be big enough for my camera to be able to see. I think that one is big enough for my camera. And I have all the marks here. And it looks neat and beautiful. Let me see. Let me now take you through the process of exactly what I did. Over here, I've got student 1. Here, I've got student number 2, student number 3, student number 4, 5, 6, and 7. These are the names of the learners, the students. Can you be able to see everything? In the first column here, I've got paper 1, paper 2, paper 3. Then in the second column, I'm adding paper 1 and paper 2, just like we did in the calculation. Then in the next one, I'm dividing that sum of paper 1 and paper 2 by 160. That is the sum of the papers, sum of the total marks in the papers, which is 80 plus 80, which gives me 160. Then when I get that, which I'm calling a B, I'm going to get a B and multiply it by 60. And then I get a value that I would call C. Okay, and then in order to get the percentage, I'm going to get that value that I'm calling C, which is out of 60. The student has already scored 60%. That is the maximum that the student can be able to score in paper 1 and paper 2. In order to get 100%, I'm going to add paper 3. Paper 3 usually comes in as raw marks. So what did the student get in paper 3? The student got maybe what did the student get? 36, and I added 36 onto these marks here in order to get the final percentage. So let me delete these marks here that we have there. So I'm going to delete. So I have deleted the marks for student 1 for paper 1, paper 2, paper 3. And you can see everything here for this column, and this column, and even the last column for the percentage. Everything is 0, 0, 0. It is waiting for me to input the marks. All right. So over here, I had here, I'm adding paper 1 and paper 2. And the moment I click there, and if you look on the formula bar here, you will see equal to sum into brackets B2 plus C2 close brackets. What does that mean? This means that I'm getting the sum. The sum is an addition. The sum of this value, paper 1 and paper 2. All right? That is what I'm getting here. That is what is giving me A, the sum of what the students scored in paper 1 and paper 2. All right? Let's go on. So how did I get this equation? How did I get that equation? I'm going to show you how that equation is obtained. Now, when I come to this other cell here, when I click on it, the equation that I used there appears there. I'm having the value that I got in cell E2. This is cell E2. This is the reference for this particular cell. The intersection of this letter and this number is called cell reference. This number and this letter, E2. So I'm getting the value in the cell E2, and then I'm dividing that by 160. And that is what we did in the calculations. All right. Then after that, what do I do in the next cell? I'm now getting the answer I got in the previous cell and multiplying it by 60 in order to get what the student scored out of a maximum of 60%. What the student get. So the value that I got in this cell, which is F2, I multiply it by 60. So, and you can see over there, cell F2 multiplied by 60. I'm going to show you how we get that star for multiplication. And then the final step here is now to get what the student got out of 60. I add the raw marks for paper 3. And it is just as simple as I get the sum of what the student scored in the cell G2 by I add what the student scored in paper 3. I get the sum of what I have in this cell G2 and paper 3. And you can see the equation is again given there. Sum of what the value in G2 is, which is the student's percentage out of 60, and then I add 40. I add what the student scored in paper 3. Where do we find paper 3? Paper 3 is found in the cell D2. In the cell D2. So I add whatever I get in this cell, which is G2, to the cell in D2. Now, once I've got for that particular student and I've tested and I know that it is working, I go ahead and generate and use it for several other students. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to have other students here. This is, I've just scrolled down. So I just want to show you how I obtained these ones. So I'm going to have, how am I going to name these students? Let me name these students A, B, C, D. So student A, I'm going to have student B, student C, student D, student E, student F, and student G, for example, or H. Something like that, right? And then here, above here, I'm going to have what the student scored in paper 1. I'm going to call that one paper 1. I think it is here. I'm going to call it paper 1. And then I'm going to have what the student scored in paper 2, what the student scored in paper 3, and the other calculations, the other manipulations, right? What are the other manipulations? here, I'm going to get something that I'm going to call a P. P is equal to the sum of paper 1 and paper 2. And paper 2. That is what this cell, which I'm going to call P, this equation, P, gives me the sum of paper 1 and paper 2. All right? The next one, I'm going to get what I got here by, I'm going to divide it by 160. All right? So, I'm going to have P, because that is what I got in the previous cell. I divide it by 160. 160. Then this one will give me something that I'm going to call Q. Q is equals to that value. Then the next one, I'm going to multiply whatever I get from that ratio by 60. So I'm going to get Q, I multiply it by 60. By 60. Q times 60. In order to get this, I'm going to call it R. Okay, R is Q times 60. And then S gives me what? What did I get in the previous cell, which is out of 60%? It is R. I'm going to get R, and then I'm going to add what I got in paper 3. That is all that I need. So what are the equations for this? I go to the cell for this first cell for this student. What did that student get in paper 1, paper 2, paper 3? Before I put in the marks, let me get the equation for adding paper 1 and paper 2. Oh, by the way, this one is paper 2. I've just made a mistake there. That's paper 2. So what does the student get here? Let me see. So I put my cursor there. The moment I click, I'll go up here to the formula bar. You can see this formula bar here. I put my cursor there and then start by typing the equal sign. And then I'm going to say sum. Sum. You are adding 2 or 3 numbers. Where are they found? The sum of what and what. So the moment I click sum, I can put brackets, closing and opening brackets, and then I return the cursor right in the middle there, where now I'm going to say it is sum of what and what. It is the sum of, what am I adding? I'm adding this B11, or what the student got in paper 1. So I click on it like that, and then I want to add, so I go to control and then I add P2, paper 2. Let me see whether that one gives me what I'm looking for. Let me test. 20 there, and 30. Does it give me 50? Yes, it is giving me 50. So that equation that I have there is working. Equal to sum of, into brackets, the value in this cell plus the value in this cell. All right. Then let's go to the next one. The next one is now this 50, I've got to divide it by 160. So I'm going to say it's division. So again, I start with the equal sign. In Excel, that formula is always entered by starting with an equal sign. So I'm going to say equal sign. I'm going to get this value here in this cell, that cell, okay? And then I'm dividing it by, you'll go to the key on your keyboard. On the right hand side, you'll get this number system, and then you'll find that tab there at the top with the slash. that slants like that. That means division. Divide by 160. And I have my number there. And if let me click enter and see whether it gives me that. When you divide 50 by 160, does it give you that value? Let's check. 50, just check using your calculator, divide by 160. 160. Yes, it gives me 0.3125, and that is correct. After that, I'm now going to get the value that I got in the previous cell, the value that I got there, Q, all right? I'm going to multiply it by 60. Again, I'll come here and enter the formula that I'm going to use. So I'm going to get the value here, the value in the previous cell. So I just say that value, which is in F11, I multiply it by 60. Multiply it by 60. Multiplication, again, when you're on the numbers on the right hand side of your keyboard, you will see that star just next to the slash. It means multiplication. So I just click on it and you'll see that star appears there. You're multiplying it by what number? You're multiplying it by 60 because you want to find what the student scored out of 60. And when you say enter, again, you can see if I multiply 0.3125 by 60, does it give me 18.75? Again, you keep on verifying whether what you're doing is correct. 0.3125 times 60. It gives me 18.75. 18.75. So far, so good. We are coming now to the end of our system that we are developing. So after that, we are going to add the value that we get, 18.75. This is what the student scored out of 60. Now, out of 40, which is paper 3, what did the student get? So I'm going to get the value here. This again, a sum. So I go to the formula sheet there. I put the equal sign. It is the sum of what and what. So sum of, again, opening, closing brackets, of what and what. It is the sum of the value that I got here, that I got there, and it is the sum of the value that I got here to the sum or added to what the student got in paper 3. And there I have it. I've added those two, and let me click enter and see what the student gets. Oh, the number has not changed. Why is it that the number has not changed? It's because I've not entered any value for paper 3. That student scored 29 there. And when I say enter, it gives me 48%. Right? I can further improve on this number so that it gives me a whole number. But this one now makes your work much, much easier because it's just a matter of rounding it up and you know what the student obtained. Now you want this equation because you have tested it with this student. It is working. You want now to apply this system to all the students that you have in the class. Remember, my students now are from A all the way to H. They could be from 1 all the way to 100 students, 1,000 students. It really does not matter. And remember, the more the number of students in a class, the higher the chance that you can make a mistake when you are calculating these values manually. You don't want to do that. You don't want to calculate these values manually because if you do that, you will certainly get tired. It will take a very long time and you can make mistakes. So why don't you just become careful in entering marks, raw marks for paper 1, paper 2, paper 3? Because being careful in what the students scored started with when you're marking the scripts. You are very careful there. Then you gave the students the marks for out of 80 in paper 1, out of 80 in paper 2, and out of 40 in paper 3. That is where you need to be very careful. Then you get these marks now from your MacBook, because now I'm transferring the marks from my MacBook into a system that I've designed. Where do you need to be very careful is when you're entering the marks for paper 1, paper 2, and paper 3 for that particular student. You need to be very careful. Then the rest of it, the rest of the calculations, the system does for you. So let me show you what you do so that it applies to all the students. So this is what you will do. Let me first of all delete all these marks, and you can see that now I cannot be able to delete these marks, these zeros that I get here. Why is it that I can't be able to delete? It shows 0 because the student scored in 0 in paper 1, 0 in paper 2, 0 in paper 3. So everything is 0, 0, 0. But as soon as I start adding values there, these values start changing. And we have already seen that. So I'll go to the first cell over here. Left click, drag it all the way to the end. And then I have everything selected. Then I'll come to this plus sign here until the symbol changes. You can see the sign changes into a good plus. So I'm going to again click, hold, and then drag to apply to all the students, and I keep my eye there. It applies to all the students. Very many students have gone beyond the marks which I actually wanted, but you can see now I can be able to go to student A, enter the marks as the student scored. Student B, let's test it with the student B. What did our student B get? Can you remember that? Let's go again to the, I think, let's just enter n values. You can use the calculator to change this, to check the system. I'm sure this system is going to prove me right. So this student obtained, let me say, very generous, got 67 in paper 2 and 35 or 32 in paper 3. What did the student get as a percentage? 70.25. That's about 70%. You might want to give, depending on the way the students have performed, it's up to you to decide whether it is 71 or just 70. Because 0.25, they are marks that the student has scored. So if you round it down, you will be denying the students a mark. So always round up. Give the student 71%. All right. So another student gets, this one's a bright one, gets 55% in paper 1, gets, so this student gets 61% in paper 2. Let me again be generous and say this student got 30 marks out of 40. What does that student get? And he gets 73.85. Just in case there are corrections that you are doing, maybe the student brings in some corrections in paper 1 and you go back to your system and you realize that, oh, instead of 55, it's supposed to be maybe 58. Let's say 58. So you just change in the system and you will see the marks readjust themselves to a different percentage. So the moment you change the marks, you don't again have to go back to the system and calculate the percentage once again. No. Okay, the system gives you the marks, the percentages at the end directly. Now, this is what I did with my class, and I found that it was actually fun, you know, entering those values into my small system, and it gave me the percentages, and then I just copied the percentages the way they are. I went to the Excel sheet that I had downloaded from our exam analysis system, pasted them, and then just uploaded. All right, and it becomes so easy to do that. So hopefully this one helps you to work through such large data, and you don't have to do it manually. You can be able to use Excel to do simple mathematical manipulations. And remember, this one you can apply it to your place of work, in your businesses, and anywhere where you're dealing with addition of numbers. Let us assume that you're dealing with a system where from time to time you've got to enter just the values in a system, and then the system just calculates for you, and it gives you an addition at the end. You just need to test that the system is working perfectly. Once it is working perfectly, you come back to the system and now start entering the amounts as you get it, the raw data. Once you get the raw data, the system calculates for you. Hopefully this has been of assistance to you, those teachers, specifically those teachers who are dealing with a very large number of students. You don't have to get tired. You don't have to do the same thing over and over again. Allow machines to do that one for you. This is an example of how a teacher can use ICT in their work to make it much simpler. So if you're dealing with the two papers and there is a way you calculate the percentage, you just need to adapt what I've shown you there. If you're dealing with a single paper and you need to convert it out of percentage, maybe it is out of 80 and you want a percentage, you just need to get the raw marks for the student. X out of 80 times 100, you get that you'll be multiplying each and every value by 1.25. So that is what you'll put in that formula sheet. Whatever the value the student has got times 1.25, that will give you the percentage directly. And then you can always copy the percentages, paste it into the Excel sheet that you have downloaded, and then upload. So if you've not subscribed to my channel, please do that, because it's going to help you. I've got tons and tons of videos there where I show teachers how to do different stuff. Besides, if you subscribe and share the video with your colleagues, it helps my system. So first of all, make sure that you like that video and then you share it with your colleagues, because it helps my channel to grow. Otherwise, see you in the next video where I design something that can be useful to you as a teacher. Bye-bye.